Welcome into Win the Line, presented by the 33rd team. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside Maxx Forde. We're talking some injuries today and all the matchups that you need to know in week 5. We're rolling through the season, which is kind of crazy right now, but the injuries are starting to stack up, and we got some significant ones to talk about. Maxx, the first one being Patriots edge rusher Matthew Judon. This is a huge blow in New England. Nothing has gone right for this team the entire season, so this makes it much worse. How do you see this impacting the defense?
Yeah, he's a difference maker. I know he's kind of underrated. He flies under the radar. He doesn't get like the same kind of talk about him as you might with some of the other premier pass rushers, but he's definitely up in that tier. And losing a player like that is going to impact your defense. Give quarterback a little bit more time to dissect your secondary, and just not one that you want to see if you're a Patriots fan.
Yeah, definitely not one you want to see as a hometown Patriots guy. It definitely hurts, but nothing's gone right. So again, it's not the end of the world when you look at it. But a guy that could be the end of the world losing him when you look at the Cowboys right now, Tyron Smith, knee injury. He's iffy for Sunday's game against the 49ers. This would be a huge loss if he didn't play. I already think the Niners are a much better team than the Dallas Cowboys, but without Smith in there, it could be really hard for Dallas to move the ball. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, you're looking at a clash of titans in there on the line. If you've got the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, San Francisco defensive line, if you got everybody healthy, if you're losing him, that puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage. And like you said, I think overall as a team, I think San Francisco is better. And so you want to have your full team at health if you're Dallas going into that one. And as a fan, you do want to see those two premier lines go at it. So you want to see him in there, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, we get that matchup on Sunday Night Football, so it should be a good one. Dolphins tackle Teron Armstead's going to miss weeks with the knee injury. Look for this to impact Miami moving forward. They got beat up last week by the Buffalo Bills. And then the last one to talk about here, New York Giants tackle Andrew Thomas, still day-to-day with a hamstring injury, looking like he's going to play this week. But Maxx, watching this game, the Giants game against the Seahawks last week, were you like salivating as a defensive lineman just watching them get to Daniel Jones repeatedly throughout the game?
Man, it's one of those games where everything goes according to plan if you're the defense. It's fun to be part of one of those games. You kind of making bets with your friends on the sidelines, who's going to get the next sack, that kind of a thing. Kind of feel a little bit jealous of those guys because you love that feeling. It's just a good time to go get yours and have fun with your buddies back there. So it's one of those things that I know as a defender, it's awesome. How is it for you as an offensive player seeing something like that happen?
It's not fun to watch. I mean, Daniel Jones made a lot of mistakes with football when he had time, but the offensive line was not getting the job done. And when they started getting injured early in the game, there were a few injuries where they'd bring even more backup guys in. It just didn't work out for New York. So hopefully they can get that fixed, because as an offensive line guy, I hate watching a quarterback just get brutalized all game. And that's what happened to Daniel Jones. But we're going to move into some matchups, the biggest mismatches of the week. One we're looking at takes place on Thursday night, tomorrow night. Washington Commanders defense versus the Chicago Bears offense. This will be an interesting one. The Bears are on a 14-game losing streak. We'll see what they can do if they can get back on the winning track here. But the Bears are in the bottom third of the league when it comes to rushing and passing yards allowed per game, have not gotten the job done. But on the flip side, the Commanders have allowed 30-plus points per game. So this Washington defense is not necessarily playing great football right now. So how do you see this matchup playing out?
Yeah, I just want to put a little bit of context on that last point. 2 out of the last 3 weeks, they played a couple top offenses in Philadelphia and Buffalo. And against Buffalo, they didn't really get a ton of complimentary football from their offense. There were 5 turnovers, and one of those turnovers was a pick six. So they're not exactly getting a lot of help, short fields in that game as well. And so I do think they still have a defense that's going to be tough to run the ball on. Their secondary might have a little bit more trouble. There have been a lot of long touchdowns where you would like to see the defensive line hit home so they don't have enough time to let those long pass plays develop. But I do think they have the talent there, and especially in this matchup against Chicago, where they're not going to be playing Denver, who's looking like a defense that might be one of the worst in the league this year and one of the worst in the league in a few years, to be honest. So I think this is a good matchup for Washington.
Yeah, the talent's much better for Washington. Chase Young, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen. I think that all those guys will be in the backfield consistently. I think the Bears in their past 5 games have given up 24 sacks, 24 to 27 sacks in that range, which is nuts to me. But yeah, there should be a lot of Washington defenders in the backfield. One prop I want to talk about here, Justin Fields, his total for his rushing plus passing yards is set around 240.5, depending on the book that you're using. Where would you lean here?
I think I'd lead the under here. We haven't seen Justin Fields running the ball as much this year. Kind of throw out that Denver game because, like I said, their defense has been struggling quite a bit this year. I haven't seen him scrambling as much as I would like to be seeing, because that's one of his strengths, and you want to lean into that probably as an offense. They haven't been doing it, and then obviously they've been having a tough time passing the ball as well. And I do think this matchup that we're talking about here in the trenches favors that Washington defensive front. Those guys, I think, will be able to get to them. Like you said, they've been averaging, it sounds like, about 5 sacks a game, given up for the Chicago offense. And so I think this is another one where he's going to be under pressure, and I'd lean under on that prop.
I'd probably go with the over here. I don't think he has a great day running the ball just because of that Commanders front seven. But passing wise, Washington's been a little shaky, even if it's been against really good offenses. So I do see him having a good day through the air. But we will move into Buffalo versus Jacksonville. Buffalo Bills defense versus the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. This game's going to take place in London. I think the one advantage that the Jaguars have here is the fact that they've been in London for over a week now, played last week and beat the Falcons. One guy that I want to look for or want to talk about here, Ed Oliver for the Buffalo Bills, 10 solos and 3 sacks in 4 games, 6'1", 290-pound defensive tackle. Max, take me back to your playing days. If you were through 4 games right now, you had 10 solos and 3 sacks, would you just feel unstoppable?
Oh, especially as a player on the interior, absolutely. A lot of times you see those guys, you can get sacks like that, but you're not. I mean, unless your name's Aaron Donald, you're not getting a sack a game or close to it normally. So he's playing lights out right now, and he's been a guy that has been playing well over a number of years, and so it's just kind of picking up where he left off there.
Yeah, so the big question is Von Miller going to play this week? He may or may not play. We saw that he was seen practicing. Even without Von Miller, is this still a massive mismatch in your mind?
Oh, yeah. The depth that the Bills have on the edge is just insane to me. They've got Greg Russo, that should be getting Leonard Floyd back, I think. Got A.J. Epinesa, who had that defensive touchdown we talked about in the last matchup. Got Shaq Lawson, and then if you add Von Miller back to that, you can just roll guys through, keep them fresh, and you keep giving those different looks to the offensive linemen. And I think that's really tough when offensive line has to play guys who have different tools like that. I'm sure you can speak to that a little bit more, but I think that is kind of the big difference in this matchup.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the Jaguars are not running the football well. They're not really throwing the ball that well. Travis Etienne last week against the Falcons, 20 carries for 55 yards. That's under 3 yards per carry average. So they're going to have to do something special in this game to move the ball. I don't exactly know what that's going to be, whether it's wide zone and then working in some counter plays, or if they're going to just go trap and power. I don't think they have the offensive line to beat up the Buffalo Bills. So it's more likely we see some wide stuff and some outside run game, try to get to the edge with Etienne. Another matchup we're looking at here, which will not be much of a running matchup. I think it'll be more of a passing matchup for the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to face the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and the Eagles have struggled against the pass, but they've been dominant against the run. They're second in the league in yards allowed against the run, least yards allowed. So they've been very, very good. And they're also doing 2.8 sacks per game, which is 16th in the NFL. Max, what do you think the issue has been getting to the quarterback? They're not necessarily dominant in that area as a defensive-minded guy.
Yeah, sometimes I think you can affect the quarterback and not necessarily hit home, and I think that's something that we're seeing with them a little bit. They're still getting some pressure onto the quarterback, but I mean, as a defensive player, sometimes you get there, you're like a step away. You kind of want to let the quarterback still know that, like, hey, I was around there, like, kind of get that in the back of his head so he remembers that got to speed up that clock. But yeah, you don't get to kind of inflict some of that pain that you'd like to. Obviously, I'm not talking about injuries. You don't want to hurt the quarterback, but you do want to kind of make him feel you a little bit. And so for them, I think there's a little bit of that going on where they're not quite hitting home. And we are seeing a lot of it come from the interior as well. I want to see their edge play kind of step up and collect a few more of those sacks and those pressures. So.
Yeah, the edge has been inconsistent. I think Jordan Davis has been phenomenal in the interior there. He's been terrific getting to the quarterback. But we just need to see more consistency from this group overall to really help out their secondary. The player that I want to talk about right now, Matthew Stafford. He does have a hip contusion, but he's probably going to play. He's got 300-plus passing yards in 3 of 4 games this season. He had 307 against the 49ers. So, Max, does he hit that 300-yard mark knowing that the Rams are probably going to be throwing the ball a lot more against this Eagles defense?
Man, and like you said, he just put up 307 against the 49ers defense, which I think, like, if you look at all 3 levels of the defense, probably better. I do think 300 is a big number. I'd probably have to take the under there, but I think he can flirt with it for sure. That hip contusion might affect him a little bit, his mobility, but he's a tough player. I mean, we've seen him do some crazy things in his career, including throw that the 2-point conversion with, I think, the dislocated shoulder, probably about 10 years ago. So I expect he'll be toughing it out in there, and I think he can flirt with it, but I'd probably take the under here.
Yeah, when we do get passing props, because obviously we don't have props yet, but when we do, his number will not be around 300. It'll probably be in that 280, 270 range. But 300, you could take an alternate line if you do like it there. I'm going to take the under, just knowing that the contusion's probably going to be bothering him. Some budget plays to talk about. Moving to DFS now. Under $3,000 is our threshold here. The first we're looking at, which I actually love, Tennessee Titans defense versus the Indianapolis Colts offense. The Titans defense ranked 8th in the least points allowed per game, and they're 4th in the NFL against the run. They are bottom 3rd when it comes to defending the pass, but I don't see Anthony Richardson necessarily lighting it up through the air in this game. Max, what is your game plan as a defense if you're the Tennessee Titans coming into this one against a very mobile rookie quarterback?
Well, you want to limit that mobility first off. You got to get like a spy on that, or you have to have a game plan. You want to, as a defensive line too, you might want to run some games to kind of mess up some of those rushing lanes that he might have. You get those stunts in there, kind of get some misdirection, and everybody jumbled up in there. It's harder for him to find a area to escape to. But definitely want to have somebody dedicated to him. Make sure he can't run, because that's definitely a way that we've seen he can hurt you. And as a rookie quarterback, you want to get some pressure on him because rookie quarterbacks are prone to making rookie mistakes sometimes. And if you can get him to give the ball to you, that's great. I know he's had a good start to a season, but like you said, he hasn't exactly been lighting it up through the air, which is where Tennessee's been a little bit fragile. And so I think if you can get more pressure on him, you might be able to force some of those turnovers.
Yeah, if you can take his legs away, I don't think he beats them through the air. But with that being said, the Colts are going to continue to lean on the run with QB trap, QB power, and all these different designed runs for him. One guy I want to talk about in this game, Jeffrey Simmons, first rounder in 2019 out of Mississippi State. Been dominant once again, very good NFL career so far. 9 solos with 3 sacks this season. The Colts will have trouble blocking him. It's not if, it's they definitely will. But what have you seen from Simmons so far this season?
Oh, yeah. Like, he's just such a strong player, man. He resets the line of scrimmage, just gets that knockback. He wins the line, if you will. So definitely gets that knockback, resets the line of scrimmage. And he's the kind of guy that is big, strong, but he's also athletic. So he can get off that block and make the play and finish it all by himself. So he's one of those guys that can wreck the game on his own, and we've been seeing that.
Definitely. Moving into our final DFS matchup, and we're going to compare these two after what's Max's best value plan, what's mine. But the Pittsburgh Steelers defense versus the Baltimore Ravens offense, $2,700 here. The Steelers are priced at. The defense hasn't been great. They just gave up 30 points to the Texans. They peaked in week 2 against the Browns with a couple defensive touchdowns. The talent is there. We know that, but Pittsburgh as a whole has been underperforming. So do you like this matchup with an underperforming Pittsburgh Steelers defense against a Ravens team that just absolutely surged on offense last week?
To be quite honest, I don't absolutely love the matchup, but it's one that I can see following Pittsburgh's way just based on the talent. I will say I can also see it completely burning you the way that Baltimore is playing, and I do think they have one of the top offensive line groups in the league. This is just a bet on defensive talent where we've got that $3,000 threshold, and down there, I think the talent that Pittsburgh has on defense is just better than any of the other teams that are in that price range. And because of that, I can see it going their way. And shoot, we've seen them win games on defense this year already against Cleveland, like you said. So I think they can do it. Whether they will or won't, I think there's definitely a range of outcomes that's very wide here. Baltimore could throttle them as well. We just saw them get beat pretty bad by Houston. But I would take a bet on defensive talent if I'm looking for a little bit of a budget play here. I would be willing to sprinkle them in a little bit.
Yeah, if it was not for the Steelers' front seven and defense as a whole, they wouldn't have a win on the season. So you have to trust them in that regard. The Ravens' offensive line is still beat up. Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley still questionable. They've been questionable every week, but obviously dealing with some stuff there. If I had to pick, I would go with the first DFS matchup. If we're comparing the two, I think there's a lot more upside playing Tennessee against Indianapolis for $300 less. Where would you lean, Max?
Absolutely agree. You're saving on the price, and I think the matchup's better. I think if you're comparing the two, you got to go there as the one that you get more exposure to in your DFS lineups for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that was our biggest mismatches in DFS plays for the week. Max, another week is down. Win the line in the books. Week 5 coming up. So very excited about that. And we will see you guys next week for week 6, breaking down the biggest mismatches in DFS plays from an offensive and defensive line perspective. Thanks for joining us on Win the Line.